Cinema moving towards in the, let's say, the next 2 years, 2 to 5 years? Where do you think it's going to go?
I think right now, because right now I see Africa is trying to make collaborations with the Caribbean,
Mm-hmm.
countries like Ghana. I think the Caribbean is going to move into more co-productions,
Uh-huh.
making because right now the film industry needs business because there isn't a lot of channels set up to support indigenous filmmaking.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to see maybe more James Bonds and more Yardis and
Mm.
things like that happening. Hopefully, that would
Mm-hmm.
be good too because it would give the talent on the islands some exposure
Mm-hmm.
and some opportunities to work with a bigger production on your home base.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's a lot of Caribbean people in film, but the tendency is you have to migrate to one of these
Uh-huh.
cosmopoles to work, at the highest levels.
Yeah.
And right now, a few years ago, it was better.
Mm.
Places like Trinidad had more resources going towards cinema, but right now, the only beacon of, the
Yeah.
lighthouse right now is Jamaica,
Ah.
and yeah, and they're actually set up to invite people to come to the island to do commercials or to do
I'll
films.
I'll I'll be coming then. We'll link
Okay,
up because
okay. Well,
that's the
I,
thing.
I would like to go to. I'm actually trying to see who I could contact and link
Yeah.
up with.
Yeah, for
Maybe I'll just go
sure.
there.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not going to be straightforward. Everywhere you go in the Caribbean, working in this medium is a challenge
Yeah,
because
I guess it's an emerging
yeah, it's
kind of
emerging.
market. And I
Yeah.
think for my company, Creative Core Caribbean, we want
Mm-hmm.
to, my vision is to turn it to
Mm-hmm.
invest my skills, my knowledge, my desires, my potential into the Caribbean, because I think that it's so wealthy. There's so many stories. I think sometimes it gets overshadowed by the slave thing, and it's only a few narratives. And I think there's so many more stories that can be developed, especially being in that environment.
Yeah, man.
Um,
There's tons of stories.
yeah, that it's you just need to be there to feel it and then just go with it. So that's one of my
But
aims.
it's complex how reality is set up, because I'm here and I do feel it and I do see it, but like I said, the situation doesn't allow it to
Mm,
manifest so easily. I
yeah.
mean, it takes a great effort on my part to make it manifest.
Yes.
And I mean, you're there and the resources may be more accessible there for you,
Hmm.
but you feel you need to come here. So it's interesting how
Yeah.
how it's set up and how it works, because
Yeah. Do you know what
the people here are looking towards out
yeah,
there, and you're there looking towards here.
but it's that saying: a prophet is never honoured in his own home. He has to, he or she always has to travel far. And I think it's always there is an industry here, film industry, but I think it's so saturated now.
Hmm.
Um, I guess I've always had that. I guess it's that Caribbean-esque feeling of. Uh, Feeling like you need to belong somewhere that feels it reflects you, and I feel that's what's happening to me. It's that change, it's that pull towards going home to the
Mm.
Caribbean and investing my energy there. So it feels very exciting. It feels like an emerging
Yeah,
market.
it's the new Wild West,
It's the
man.
new Wild West, and wouldn't it
Yeah,
be incredible to do, a western in the Caribbean?
yeah,
The Western West Indies,
yeah,
something like that.
yeah. I actually have an idea for a Western-based samurai movie
Oh,
in Cuba.
lovely.
Because in Cuba, there's a lot of Asian Cubans. So you see a
Uh
guy
huh.
and he looks like maybe he's Chinese or he's Japanese,
Yeah,
and when you talk to him, he's like, ah, hola, he's speaking Spanish.
yeah.
So and then there's a thing they have like the guys in the countryside, they call them Guajiro,
Mhm.
which is these guys dressed in olive green and they have these big hats,
Uh
you
huh.
know, and they look like they could be it could compare to like a
Yeah,
samurai look,
yeah.
right? And
It's
then
like a Sergio Leone film.
right,
Oh,
yeah, and
yeah.
then these farmers, these Guajiros,
Mhm.
they played a big part in the Cuban Revolution from Spain
Uh huh.
because it was the farmers and the campesinos that rise up
Yeah.
with their cutlasses.
Mhm.
So I wanted to find a Chinese Cuban Guajiro,
Wow.
a Chino. Because in
Yeah.
Cuba they call him and say, "Hey, Chino," because he looks like a Chinese,
Yeah.
but he's Cuban, and it's like a nickname.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I wanted to and just play with that, just
Yeah.
play with that, switch maybe he has a samurai sword from his immigrant foreparents who came from whenever, and it's a special sword in the family, but now he has to use it to defend his Cubanness.
Yeah, I love that idea, and I am fascinated with kabuki theatre, which is like
Okay.
traditional
Uh,
Japanese
uh,
theatre, and
uh-huh.
just the face makeup and the costumes. It's very elaborate, and
Yeah.
yeah, that idea of transposing two opposite cultures and just merging them together very very subtly
It's
would
very subtle.
be really interesting. Actually, there's a manga short series called Afro Samurai, and it's
Oh, I
voiced.
know that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
brilliant, and it's
Yeah.
voiced
Yeah.
by
Yeah. Yeah.
what's his name, Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
I can't.
Yes, this is one of my references too.
I
Yeah. Yeah.
love it, and it was the first time that I. What's the actor's name? Samuel L. Jackson, and it was the first time
Yeah.
that
But
I've seen
uh-huh.
uh, like an Afrocentric.
African.
Yes,
Yeah.
with an
Yeah. Yeah.
afro, with really, really good language, really good script.
Yeah.
I think it's only
Yeah.
about 5 or 6 episodes,
Mm-hmm.
and the animation is fantastic.
Super.
I,
It's probably no because I'm sure they did it in Japan.
yeah, for
Some
sure.
I could